Hey, what's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars. Today we're going to be taking a look at
It Chapter 2,
which was just released to digital today. Fair warning, I'm getting over a nasty case of upper respiratory nastiness. I just had laryngitis so bad that I couldn't talk like yesterday, so if my voice sounds a little bit weird, that's why. That being said, my illness also kept me up all night, so when It 2 was released, I was able to see it right away. So there is that. Also, one more thing, I'm not the only sickie in town. My son is also home from school sick, so if you hear some coughing or some weird noises in the background, it's not Pennywise. It's just my kid. It's just one big mess in this house, and I do apologize for that. Anywho, onto our review for It Chapter 2. 27 years after the events of the first film, Pennywise has returned to Derry, Maine, desperate to eat more children. And the Losers Club must come together once again to find a way to defeat the creature once and for all. The only problem is nobody can remember how.
Hello. Please.
As a whole, It Chapter 2 was one of my higher anticipated films of the year because even though the first one didn't scare me at all, it was still made really, really well from nearly every cinematic level, and that's the one thing that I wanted to see come out of the sequel. And did I see that? Well, yes and no. There were things that honestly surprised me here, as well as a few things that kind of disappointed me too. So let's get into it. When digging into some positives in this film, a lot of people love pointing out the casting, and I'd mostly have to agree with that assessment. The casting is very, very good, minus maybe one person. Everybody mostly felt as if they were playing the older version of the colorful kids seen in the first film. Believably portraying a good number of kids all grown up is already probably pretty hard. These people went the extra mile as they all seemed to carry the same essence and personality and soul that the kids had, and it was quite honestly remarkable how identical the adult actors felt like the kid actors. Bill Hader in a horror film, come on now. There was one actor I was never on board with though, and most of you will probably disagree with me on this, but Jessica Chastain as Beverly. I know a lot of people really wanted to see it, including Sophia Lillis herself, but I never bought it. She didn't bring the same energy and charisma to the film as Sophia Lillis did. I felt as if she was a tad too cold or produced, while everybody else felt genuine. I would have rather seen Amy Adams in the role though, as Sophia Lillis has already portrayed a younger version of Amy Adams in the TV show Sharp Objects. And guys, they're like clones of one another. How did they miss the mark here? Regardless, the casting was still one of the best areas in this movie. Also, this second film has the better standalone narrative structure than the first. There's an introduction, an inciting incident, a story goal that everybody is trying to achieve, obstacles that each individual character must go through to succeed the end goal, a specific climax that felt like not only the events in this film were building up to it, but the events of the first film as well, and mostly a satisfactory resolution. The first film was almost all introduction and climax, which flowed together well enough, but it didn't have all the elements that I wanted to see, while this one did. There are some things neither here and there for me. You can definitely tell that this is an adaptation. While it feels like a film with a complete narrative structure, it's also really long, more than 2.5 hours in length, which is just too much. And the obstacles themselves play out like individual chapters. They split up, and then each character has a segment where they must go to a location that means something to them, find an artifact at that location that they need to use later, and escape from Pennywise, who is hot on their trail. Actually, it almost plays out like an adventure video game. I feel like normally a movie would hire an editor specifically for things like this, edit all the scenes together in an interesting fashion, since they all kind of mirror one another. Scenes like this would actually be very, very easy to edit together to convey a simple single idea. But just like the first, I felt like they expanded on certain areas because they wanted to include as much of what's in the book as humanly possible, and that's just not necessary. Now, onto some negatives. As I feared, the first film had more importance in the long term due to the themes of facing your fears, and doing that through a physical manifestation made that movie really unique. Unfortunately, that means that the kids had already stood their ground, faced those fears, and defeated the physical manifestation of those fears. I feel like from a literary standpoint, the story should have probably ended there. That when the adult characters got the call that Pennywise has returned, that they all have a similar attitude of let's kill this monster, but without the fear. And they all had fear in this movie, and that just didn't make sense to me because they had already faced those fears. They had already overcome those fears. By making them afraid again, it disqualifies the achievements that they made in the first part. Not only that, but the elements of their personality, like Eddie still being afraid of everything under the sun, considering it's something that he might be allergic to, it made no sense because there was a scene in the first film where he actually discovers that his mother was giving him placebo drugs to basically control him. Why is he under the impression, as an adult, that she was right again? Why is Beverly dating a boyfriend who is abusive like her dad? Something that she had to overcome in the first movie. It's like the things that they fixed in the first film were never really fixed, which is honestly quite disappointing. Another minor issue with this film is the child actors. Unlike the miniseries, our child actors are still playing a part in this film in some vital flashback moments, and you can tell that some of them are older, that they've aged, they don't quite look the same anymore. It's not a huge complaint. It is noticeable though, and it affected my overall experience. It is still a Brobdingian franchise. This review is brought to you by the word of the day, Brobdingnagian, gigantic in size. That's it. I don't know, my score for It Chapter 2 is 84%, 84 out of 100 possible stars, granting it the letter grade of B. It's not a bad film by any means. You can tell the same passion found in Part 1 is also found in Part 2. Cinematically, the film is still put together incredibly well. I'd just say that maybe the significance is much stronger in the first film. And because I'm not a huge fan of Jessica Chastain, cast as Beverly, that partially affected my chemistry score. Anyways, guys, I am very, very interested to hear what you have to say about this horror sequel. Did It Chapter 2 work for you? Did you prefer the first or the second part? Let me know in the comments down below. As for YouTube, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button if you like this review, would like to see some more like it. Hit the thumbs up button because you know that always helps out my channel, and don't forget about that bell. It may not be Taco Bell, but it is the next best thing because it helps notify you when I come out with my next movie review. And until then, peace out. Man, that hurt.